Well, I'm in Bear Brook State Park in New Hampshire, Allenstown, New Hampshire. It's about nearly 10,000 acres, about 16 square miles. I've been familiar with this park since the mid-1970s when I actually lived for 5 years in Allenstown, the south side of the park, and I've lived for the last 40 years in Epsom on the north side. So for recreational purposes, I've deer hunted here, I've canoed here and hiked here uncounted number of times. And as a fish and game wildlife biologist, I've done habitat work here, I've tagged ducks here, released bears here, I've released live moose and deer here. So I've spent much of my life, nearly 50 years, in Bear Brook State Park. Well, recently it was the podcast about Bear Brook, the bodies that were discovered here, and 2 or 3 in 1985, then more in 2000, maybe 3 or 4 miles from here, not far away, another part of the park. So I've known the park a long time, but I'm here to tell you there was another very interesting body that was discovered here, right here on this log. See, as part of our fish and game duties, I would not only put live animals here, but if we had to pick up a roadkill deer or something, Bear Brook State Park was a convenient place to bring it to get it back into the wild so wild animals could feast upon it. And there's not a lot of human activity here, so we knew it wouldn't bother anybody. So this particular carcass that was placed here was not by me, but I think by maybe the local conservation officer. I think it was Dave Esklin. I think I heard it had dumped a moose here that was not fit for human consumption. Well, Rick Hamlet, my longtime friend who lives near me here in Epsom, and we've known each other for more than 50 years, we frequent this park for our afternoon hikes or evening hikes or even nighttime hikes. And we kept looking at this moose carcass, or the remains of it that laid here. So one day in one of our walks, we picked up the moose carcass, the skeleton, and began laying it out on this log. And of course, deer and moose have big shoulder bones called scapula that are big, broad, wide bones, almost look like a fan. So we took the two scapula and laid them on top of the skeleton here, so it looked like a stegosaurus. And sure enough, a local newspaper reporter who wrote a weekly column in a paper here walked her dog here, and she spotted the stegosaurus and began writing about it. And so we had this mysterious stegosaurus carcass that showed up in Bear Brook State Park in I think the late 90s or early 2000s. Well, one day she called Fishing Game headquarters, and they, of course, knew nothing of it, but I happened to be in the office in Durham, in the Region 3 office, and she was instructed, well, why don't you call Eric Orff? He knows a lot about Bear Brook State Park. And sure enough, I had to confess to her that the source of the stegosaurus was me and Rick. So this wonderful, rare stegosaurus, this body of this animal turned up in Bear Brook State Park.